The day I closed on the little lake just outside the Pinehurst Shores subdivision, I thought I had bought myself a slice of heaven. Still water, tall pines, no covenants breathing down my neck. What I did not know was that I had parked my truck square in the crosshairs of Margaret Ellison, HOA president, self-appointed guardian of every blade of grass within a half-mile radius. The trouble started the instant the for sale sign came down. Margaret lived in the big colonial directly across the cove, wraparound porch, 3-car garage, lawn so flawless it looked spray-painted. She waved the first few times I unloaded lumber, smile tight as a drum. "Enjoy the peace, Mr. Harlan," she called. "Just remember we have standards here." I tipped my cap and kept working. I was not in her association, my deed said so in black and white. For 3 weeks it was perfect. I cleared brush, poured a gravel pad for a tool shed, sketched a future cabin on graph paper while loons called across the water. Neighbors strolled the community trail, nodded politely, kept moving. Then the yellow envelopes began sliding under my wipers. Invitations to compliance hearings I had no duty to attend. I ignored them. Margaret left a handwritten note on my gate. Aesthetic harmony along the lakefront is a shared responsibility. I folded it into my pocket and drove the first post for a simple dock. Ignoring Margaret was like ignoring a rattlesnake in your boot. Word spread through Pinehurst Shores that the lake guy was not one of us. They could not find him, could not dictate his mailbox color, could not tell him when to mow. Independence, in a place built on uniformity, is a mortal sin. The campaign turned petty fast. One Saturday, I found an official-looking violation taped to my shed. Structure fails to meet architectural guidelines. 10 days to submit plans or remove. I laughed until the second notice arrived. Operating heavy equipment during quiet hours. My loudest tool was a battery drill. 2 days later, bright orange survey stakes appeared, marching across my shoreline like an invading army. County records showed the HOA had filed a recreational easement that swallowed 20 feet of my land. That was not a mistake. That was a land grab. I tried to stay calm. Maybe a friendly chat would clear the air. I walked the trail to Margaret's porch one evening, coffee in hand. She met me at the steps, arms folded, golden retriever at heel. "We are simply protecting community access," she said, eyes cold. "Participation is not optional." I reminded her my deed predated the HOA. She smiled the way a cat smiles at a cornered mouse. The silent war went public. New signs sprouted overnight. Private HOA lake access, members only. I pulled them down at dusk. They were back by dawn, laminated, twice as many. Kids who used to fish off my bank suddenly veered away. Neighbors crossed the street when they saw me coming. Margaret stood on her dock every morning, binoculars in hand, logging my every move. I started a binder. Every letter, every photo, every time-stamped video from the trail camera I mounted on a pine. I hired a licensed surveyor, walked the line with him, drove steel pins at the true corners. Certified copies went to the HOA board by registered mail. For one glorious week the lake was quiet. Then I woke to the sound of hammers. Across the cove a crew in Pinehurst Shores polo shirts was erecting a white picket fence along the community side, stopping inches from my survey pins. It was not on my land, but it screamed warning. That afternoon I ordered 8-foot cedar panels, treated posts, and a contractor who had built prison perimeters. If Margaret wanted a fence, I would give her one she could not ignore. The morning the trucks rolled in, Margaret materialized like a storm cloud. She paced her lawn, phone glued to her ear. By the time the first post hole was augured, 2 board members flanked her like sentries. The crew chief looked nervous. "Keep working," I said. I handed Margaret a fresh copy of the survey. She scanned it, lips moving, then dialed the county zoning office, the sheriff's non-emergency line, and her attorney in rapid succession. Sirens arrived before lunch. 2 deputies, 1 zoning inspector, a growing crowd of neighbors with phones raised. Margaret launched into a speech about shared waterways, environmental encroachment, and the sanctity of community values. The inspector flipped through my permits, nodded, and told her the fence was entirely on my side of the pins. The color drained from her face, but the mask was already cracking. She stepped over the string line, seized an upright post still waiting to be set, and shoved. The cedar snapped with a gunshot crack. The deputy's voice cut sharp. "Ma'am, back on your side. You are trespassing." Margaret froze, mouth open, the whole neighborhood filming. I could have pressed charges right there. Instead I looked her in the eye and said, "No need, officer. I will finish this my way." The deputies left. The crowd lingered, buzzing. Margaret retreated to her porch, shoulders hunched for the first time. The crew finished by sunset. 8 feet of solid cedar marching straight through what used to be the corner of her prized backyard putting green. The line was drawn. That night the HOA called an emergency meeting in the clubhouse. I went. The room was packed, air thick with candle wax and tension. Margaret stood at the podium in a navy blazer, voice trembling with rehearsed outrage. She accused me of bullying, of destroying property values, of turning a peaceful lake into a fortress. She moved to bar me from all shared amenities until I removed the eyesore. I waited until she finished, then laid my binder on the table like a royal flush. Deed, survey, violation letters, the trail cam clip of her snapping the post in front of law enforcement. The room went still enough to hear the ice melt in the water pitcher. The vice president, a retired engineer named Harold, cleared his throat. "Margaret, this has gone far enough. We do not have jurisdiction over Mr. Harlan's land. The motion dies here. The dam broke. Questions flew. A widow in the back row demanded to know why dues kept rising while the trail lights stayed broken. Someone else asked about the easement filing that vanished overnight. Margaret stammered, gathered her papers, and fled through a side door. Harold was elected interim president before the coffee got cold. The fallout was swift. The county opened a harassment file after 3 neighbors submitted my documentation. Margaret's attorney negotiated a quiet exit. She resigned. The HOA retracted every notice, and the white picket fence came down post by post. Her colonial went on the market 30 days later. The moving trucks rolled out at dawn. No one waved goodbye. Harold sent a handwritten note with the new covenants. Dues cut in half, rules trimmed to fire safety and road maintenance. He added a postscript. You reminded us where the line really is. Thank you. 2 years on, the lake is what I dreamed. I built the cabin, poured a small dock, planted wildflowers along the cedar panels. Kids fish off my bank again. Their parents wave without fear. The fence still stands, not as a wall, but as a landmark. New folks ask about the story. Old-timers tell it with a chuckle and a warning. Do not mess with the lake guy. Margaret moved to Arizona, or so the rumor goes. Sometimes on still evenings I swear I hear a faint echo across the water. The ghost of a woman who learned the hard way that control is an illusion and property lines are not suggestions. So here is the question for the comments. When someone keeps moving your boundary stones, do you keep the peace at all costs, or do you drive a post so deep they feel it in their foundations? Where is the line between patience and self-defense? Drop your stand below. I read every one.